Hey everybody, this is Samantha Denefe with Arkansas Catholic and Your I.D. And today I want to start with what I call a stat rant because there are a lot of great studies that have come out recently. So Barna came out with a study and talking about how many people have left the Catholic Church. It's increased. In 2011, 59% of people had left. Now we're up to 64%. St. Mary's and Cara did a report on 10-year-olds to 20-year-olds, and 74% of them are leaving the Catholic Church. 10-year-olds, by the way, that's 5th grade, are leaving the Catholic Church, and 87% of them are leaving for good. They're not coming back. And don't buy into the lie that, well, when they get married, they come back to the Catholic Church, because stats don't support that. Oh, well, when they have kids, they get them baptized. Stats don't support that. They are leaving for good. Half of millennials who are raised Catholic are no longer identifying as Catholic. This is really surprising because previously they still held on to that identification even though they weren't going to Mass. Now they're not even identifying as Catholic. Gallup did a study where 11% of millennials attend Mass weekly. So 89% of an entire generation is not going to church. Let me say that again. 89% of an entire generation who are raised Catholic are no longer going to church. Cara did a study, only 22% of adults attend Mass weekly. And then you may have heard about this, Monsignor Lister at St. Vincent de Paul talked about this in the Cara study too. Only 24% of Catholics believe in the real presence. 69% believe it's just a symbol. What I find really interesting about this study, we've known that Catholics struggle with that, and we've thought up to this point that it's been bad catechesis. But 22% of Catholics know that the Church teaches that Jesus is fully present in the Eucharist, and 22% of them reject it, which is really interesting. So I go on a stat rant because this matters, and we have to change the way we do ministry reflecting on this. Now, sometimes we don't change, and I think what happens, the reason we as parishes try not to change is because we don't see this affecting us personally. There's another study done on RCIA participants, and those who stay involved in the church within 3 years after they've gone through RCIA, the majority of their friends are now Catholic. So what happens is we become insular and we just focus on our friends. It's not like our friend Steve, who goes to Bible study with us every week, is leaving the church. So we don't see it as much. Although we can still say, oh yeah, my cousin left or my sister left. So it's still happening. So something has to change. Now, if you're watching this, you're probably a parishioner, committed to your faith. Maybe you even volunteer, or you serve on parish council, and you might be thinking like, yes, but what do? I'm just a parishioner. Like, Father has to do something, or the DRE has to do something. And they do, and they're working on it, and we have great things coming from our diocese, but there's a whole bunch that you as a parishioner can do. The first thing is reading the book Forming Intentional Disciples by Sherry Waddell. This sets the groundwork, it goes through all the stats, it paints a picture of where we're at today, and also gives you the fundamentals of where we need to go and how important it is to focus on forming intentional disciples. The second thing you need to do is read this book by Deacon Keith. It's called Ablaze. It just came out, and this focuses on what he calls the 5 paradigm shifts that have to happen in our culture. Things have to change. Now, I'm not advocating for changes in theology. I'm just advocating for changing the ways we do things so that the majority of our people don't leave the church. He identifies things like moving from an institutional faith, doing things because this is the way we've always done it, to an intentional faith, moving to things that affect us interiorly. Like, you know, my kid's 8 years old and they're starting to ask, why don't they receive communion? That's a good indicator that the intentionality is there, and that first grader or second grader or third grader is now ready for first communion. He wants to help us move from a culture focused on engagement. How do we get more people involved in altar society to a culture of encounter? How do we help the people coming to altar society encounter Jesus in a way that transforms them? He also identifies moving from maintenance to mission, from a focus on programs to people, and from avoidance to accountability. I don't have time to go into all this, but you should definitely read the book. Go to Father and see if he'll maybe put together a little group of leaders to look at this book, because this will change. There's lots of great programs you can get involved in, but if you want to see your kids grow up in church that's growing and thriving, some of our cultural stuff has to change, because it's been said before that culture eats strategy for breakfast. We can have the best 5-year plan for our parish. You can have the best plan for the ministry that you're running. But if you're not aware of the culture that you're in currently and what's going to block your plans, then the fruit's going to fall short. But if you take this book and read it and thumb through it, They've got a little inventory in here too to kind of identify the areas where your culture needs to change. I think you'll see a lot of fruit. So I really want to encourage you as a parishioner who's involved to go to Father. He knows about Deacon Keith. He came and did continuing education and stirred up a great conversation. He's coming back to talk to our deacons this year. They know about this. Go to Father and say, I want to be involved. I want to see our church come alive with people who love Jesus as much as I do, who start to get it, who want to come to Mass on Sunday. And I'm sure that God is going to do amazing things through you. This is Samantha Denefe. I look forward to speaking with you guys soon.